That Matter. I am your host, Dr. Clyde Posley, and I'm excited to be with you all as I am every Tuesday night at the same time. You know the price of admission to our show is for you to hit share, and also to participate in the dialogue and conversations that we bring to you on a weekly basis. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your viewership. We have viewers, as you all have heard me say before, as far away as Switzerland and Basel and South Africa, and even in Brazil. So we thank you for your viewership. We thank you for your participation. I endeavor every week to be a visual voice to a new generation. And so that's what our goal is here. I want to remind you about my book, More Than Icons and Images, Uncovering the Hidden Protest Narrative of the Black American Athlete in the 21st Century. You can get that book at my website, drclydeposley.com, or you can email me at drclydeposley at gmail.com, or you can go to Amazon and get the book as well. Thank you all. I appreciate your participation and in purchasing the book, even in a pandemic. So thank you very much for involving yourselves with what I consider to be a very poignant book in this season of protests and change, inevitable change. And we thank you for that. So today I have a fantastic topic I'm going to discuss with you. I will be right back and we're going to get involved. You do not want to miss this, especially if you are into really seeing the African-American male become all that God has designed him to be. You're not going to want to miss this show. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back again. Welcome again to Moves That Matter. And today's show is about an Black male empowerment rally and initiative that myself and 5 other brothers have gotten together, put ourselves in a socio-political and theological think tank to produce what we believe that the Lord was telling us African Americans need to be focused, African American males need to be focused on in this season. It's entitled Strong Men, Strong Minds. And it's a empowerment rally where we're going to have some dynamic speakers. And the date is August the 8th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon on that Saturday morning. August the 8th from 9 a.m. to 12 on that Saturday morning. And so I have one of the guests here, one of the lead organizers of the Strong Men, Strong Minds Empowerment Rally here with me today, brother Larry Smith, Minister Larry Smith. We're glad to have him. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
This is his maiden voyage onto the show, and so we're glad to have him here with us. He's a brilliant brother, but I'm going to let him introduce himself. Brother Smith, tell my audience a little bit about yourself and how you came to be involved with Strong Men, Strong Minds.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Dr. Posley for inviting me on Moves That Matter. It's an honor to be here. As Richard Wright would say, I'm a native son. I'm a 5th-generation Hoosier. Grew up here on the east side of Indianapolis, graduated from Southport High School, went on to college in Massachusetts, Business School in California, but I always come back home here to Indiana. A father of 3, now a grandfather of 1 as of March. Thank you very much. And just really excited to be a part of this empowerment rally. This grew out of conversations that I initially had with Councilman Keith Graves. And what Dr. Posley won't say out of humility is that he is the one who came up with the title Strong Men, Strong Minds Empowerment Rally. We were kind of thinking about what we wanted to focus on, and that was just the perfect name. And the idea really is, I mean, it's ironic that we look at the death of Reverend C.T. Vivian and Congressman John Lewis. What they stood for, what they fought and died for is what we're trying to advance.
And preserve.
And preserve.
That's right.
You know, 244 years of this American experiment, and we still have a long way to go in terms of equality, or as I like to say, America needs to recognize the full humanity of African Americans.
That's right.
And that's what we're, so civil rights is one thing, but what we're really talking about is recognizing our full humanity.
I agree.
And framing it in that way, I think, is important.
I agree. I agree. You bring up a very powerful and important notion here. It doesn't matter how we're treated or what rights we obtain, which we should have, until we are treated like full, not just citizens, but full humans. Absolutely. Not just 3/5 of an individual. There's no way for equality. And I really appreciate that. And so what I want to do today is talk a little bit about strong men, strong mind, and go initiative to initiative about how it is these issues matter to the development, the healthy, strong development of the mind of the young black man. And so let's talk about economic empowerment, which is one of them. We'll get down to the other four and beyond. But let's talk about economic empowerment. Brother Smith, as an organizer of this and as a black man, talk with my audience, talk with me a little bit about why a rally, an initiative, a stronger thrust would need to happen for African American males to become more economically solvent and prepared.
So economic empowerment is a great point. We have to understand that we live in a $20 trillion economy. African Americans, our aggregate annual income is about $1.3 trillion. So relative to that 20 trillion, that's not a lot of money. But if you think about what $1 trillion can do if we harnessed that, if we employed each other, there are a lot of scholars have written about this. The positive part of segregation, if you will, was that there were so many African American owned businesses because we could only do business with ourselves.
Which came from it.
Which came from that. So the downside of integration is that unfortunately for a lot of psychological reasons, African Americans tend not to support each other in business as we should. But even if we take away entrepreneurship, if we just learn to harness the ability to delay gratification, to save, to invest, because the dollar turns over, and this is hard for me to wrap my mind around this, but the dollar turns over less than one time in our community before it leaves. I mean, literally, we are already in debt on payday.
Make that make sense for my viewers, like as opposed to the Hebrew culture,
okay, yes,
or the Latin American culture.
Absolutely.
Think about the Mexican culture.
Absolutely. So it's
5 times.
Absolutely. So we talk about our Jewish brothers and sisters, whereas we will buy our kids Jordans for their birthdays. At their bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, they will buy them stock in Nike.
Absolutely.
That is what we have to have, that kind of mindset, not to be just consumers, but to be investors and producers.
That's right. Barbara Streisand gave stock shares to the family of George Floyd, as opposed to participating in a march.
Absolutely.
And she says, I'm pro. She says, I believe that Black Lives Matter. But to really make a difference in my mind, she suggested, I'm quoting, that these things stop. Let us bring equality to the problems that lead to some of these thoughts.
Absolutely.
And she gave those thoughts, and she gave that stock, and that was huge.
Absolutely.
And so you kind of segued into another component of our Strong Men, Strong Minds initiative, which is the mindset, the psychological impact of slavery, or being a 401-year hostage economically, socially, and in many ways theologically, spiritually. Talk about how PTSD and Joy Degree's notion of the book, the post-traumatic slave disorder. Absolutely. What do you think that has done to impact the African American male's mindset about his spending, and why maybe there's not a stronger push for legacy wealth in our culture?
There's no accident that the Apostle Paul repeatedly talks about the mind in the Bible. Let this mind be in you, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The mind is so powerful. What we do physically follows from what we do intellectually. And so we have to have a mindset that we are fully human, that we are strong mentally, not just physically. There's so much focus on physical health, and that's important. But we have to change our minds. What we consume mentally, whether it's watching TV or what we watch on the internet or what we read.
Or hearing truths.
Absolutely. Right. And so we have to be more focused on that. Do we encourage our children to read? Look at Oprah Winfrey, for example, phenomenally successful. She tells a story about how when she was a child, I can't remember the number of books she was forced to read, but she had to essentially give a book report every other day, basically, because her forebears understood the importance of mind. There's a reason why it was illegal to teach enslaved African Americans to read, right? So going back, you mentioned the days of slavery. the folks who were in charge understood if we could just be released from this prison,
That's right.
there would be nothing that we couldn't
That's
do.
right. That's right. The Bible says, in the book of Proverbs, as a man thinketh, so is he. And so, so as you just eloquently stated, we are thinking ourselves in many instances through poor self-esteem, poor self-image, that money is only for consumption. It's not for our children's future. It's not for us to gain ground. If you check the wealthiest people in the world, one of the common threads among wealthy people is they own dirt. They own dirt. Yep. They own land. Right. They can place what they want on land. They leave land to their children. Absolutely. Land is in their family. Right. I was watching some media presentations the other day, and one of them talked about that the wealth gap among college high school graduates versus who are black versus high school graduates which are white is that they have quadruple the wealth, right? Yet both, and we have basically. It's not even close. No. A college-educated white person versus a college-educated a black person, and then the wealth that's just in the family. Right. There's 17 times more wealth left to white families than there is left to black families upon the death of a grandmother or grandfather. Right. We've got to fix that.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, as a pastor, I know you've done a lot of funerals. I've done a lot of funerals. The number of times that we see people struggling just to bury their relative.
Exactly.
And you go, it's like this is inevitable. We know we're all going to expire here unless Jesus comes back. Exactly. How are we not planning even for the expenses for burial?
And that's a big deal. And I want to go, even a little further with that. We have sometimes the truth hurts people, but it also, according to John chapter 8 and verse 32, makes you free. Yeah. It's almost as though, I can say this, too often in the African American community, we just assume that GoFundMe and funeral goes together. What more often than not, what that means is there is no preparation in that family for that family's future. Right. Based on struggles in that family's past.
Absolutely.
That's not. We need to stop. We need to speak against that connection. The death of a loved one should not mean GoFundMe.
Absolutely.
And so we need to take care of that. And these are the types of things we're going to talk about. Preparing for someone else's future. The baton concept.
Absolutely.
Preparing for someone else's future. So what are some of the other concepts? And I know the answers to these, but what are some of the initiatives that we're taking at the Strong Mind rally?
Well, another is fatherhood, right? The importance of men being present in the lives of their children. Now, research does show that, as it turns out, despite the popular myth to the contrary, African American men who are not in the home with their children are more involved than white fathers and than Hispanic fathers. So
say that again, please.
Absolutely. African American men, even when they are not in the home with their children, are more involved fathers than are white men not in the home and Latino men who are not in the home.
Absolutely. That is that you just dispelled a myth that I want people, and if you don't mind, not to be facetious, but repeat that again. Here's why I want to say that. Because there is this lie in the world, in America today, that black fathers are just absent and are not a part of their... Say that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Black men... And we know this by research.
Exactly.
This is research.
That's right.
Are more involved in the lives of their children, even if they are not in the home, than are white men and Latino men. So we have to do away with that. There are some pathologies, there are some challenges in our community, but in fact, even if you look at once slavery was abolished, the first thing that black men and women did was to walk literally and look for their children, and their spouses who had been sold away from them, and it's phenomenal. We have to understand we've been so robbed of our own history in this country. We need to understand that we have a strong tradition. Another thing we talk so much about black people and out of wedlock births. It wasn't until the 1960s that black out of wedlock births exceeded those of whites. We were less than until the 1960s. So this is not the way it's always been.
That's right. That is right. That is true. Another important piece of our day on August the 8th from 9 a.m. to 12 is political participation, and why voting matters, and why it's such a big deal. Talk to us a little bit about what can happen when political participation by black males doesn't happen.
Well, this is.
Do I need to just talk about the elephant in the room?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
So I love my black millennial friends, and I don't cast aspersions on them, but there's this narrative today that your voting doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And my question is simply this: if it doesn't matter, why are they trying so hard to keep
you from voting? Exactly.
If it doesn't matter, and that just drives me insane. I understand that there are limits to voting, but we have to make sure that we come when we, as Jesse Jackson and others said, your vote is your voice, and we have to participate in this democracy. This year, for example, is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, that gave women the right to vote. And as I always remind people, no, that was white women, right? It wasn't until 1965, 5 years before I was born, that African Americans, male or female, were guaranteed the right to vote.
That's right.
And so when I think about, you mentioned Reverend Vivian, Congressman Lewis, and others whose names we will never know, fought, marched, bled, died so we could have that right.
That's right.
And if we really, and in fact, if we look at this last election, presidential election in 2016, the occupant in the White House won by a total of 77,000 votes.
That's right.
23,000 in Wisconsin, for example. Don't tell me that your one vote doesn't make a difference, because it absolutely does.
Absolutely. And actually, he lost the election.
Yeah.
If the election functioned as it should.
Votes.
Not just on the Southern electoral concept. He lost the election.
He did.
That's powerful. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of what we some of the speakers we're going to have that day and why. And what I'd like to do is bring up our keynote speaker that day. And I want us two Christian men to explain why we have this person as our keynote speaker. And it is Minister Nuri Muhammad from the Nation of Islam.
Nation of Islam. So
why would two Christian men and other Christian men like ourselves who form Strong Men, Strong Mind, why would we choose to have a speaker from the Nation of Islam?
Absolutely. Because it's not about sectarianism. It is about unity. I mean, again, look to our Jewish brothers and sisters. It's not about Republican. It's not about Democrat, liberal, conservative. It's about Israel.
That's right.
For them. So for us, it really should be about the empowerment of black men and boys. And so I've had the pleasure of hearing Minister Muhammad speak on a number of occasions. Brilliant mind, brilliant speaker. And so, he's not going to be there to talk about the Nation of Islam.
Right.
We're not there to proselytize people about Jesus.
Or against Christ.
Against Christ, absolutely. Right. So if you're an atheist, please come.
That's right.
Doesn't matter what your religious
still have
background
a vote.
is. Absolutely.
you still have manhood to attend to, whether you're an atheist or not.
Absolutely. Exactly. And so he's going to come and talk about the historical role of the black man, and as fathers, as husbands, as providers and protectors. And he's going to do a wonderful job. Really looking forward to that.
That's right. That's right. I'm looking forward to the crowd. Is there an age limit?
Not from 9 to 99.
That's right.
Please come out.
That's right. We want fathers to bring their sons, and we went and it's free. We want fathers to bring their sons. We want men who are politically astute, but then also ones who are not politically astute. We want you to see the image of intellectually, formally trained men. If a brother's pants are sagging, bring them come that day. If a brother is gay, straight, whatever the case, we want you as a man to come out to this event, because it's all designed to address that which is keeping you from the true kingship and leadership as an African American male that you're supposed to have. Sometimes the men, don't do better, Brother Smith, because they don't know better.
Absolutely.
They don't understand what it means to be a man. Many of us have been fortunate to be exposed to strong men. Talk a little bit about what are some of the pitfalls when a man has not seen a man. What are some of the potential things you've seen?
Absolutely.
Brothers trying to figure out manhood without a model.
I like what you said, trying to figure it out without a model. We will latch on to, the brother on the corner or the drug dealer who has, the nice Mercedes or whatever. And we say, I want to be like him, not knowing all that entails. It's interesting. Jay-Z talks about in one of his songs. It's like, I'm not encouraging you to sell drugs. I did that. Hopefully, you won't have to do that. So even someone who has come out of that life and has become a very successful businessman has said, no, that is not for us. I did that. He doesn't embrace that. He doesn't say, hey, follow in my footsteps. So we need to have these young brothers look at, if you want to use the term role models or whatever, and not because we have degrees and all of that. You can have, my grandmother used to say, you can be an educated fool, right? So it's not just about the degrees. It's about what are we doing to stand up and try to be an example for these young brothers to follow in our footsteps.
And you can have. I so agree with that. You can have. God wants you to have whatever you can have and still serve Him.
Right.
Once a friend of mine, he'll remain nameless. He and I were going to a meeting at a church, and he has a Mercedes. He's a real nice Mercedes. This was several years ago, and I was sitting in the passenger seat, and he was driving. And a brother, a senior man, saw who knew us. And he was going to the same meeting. He said, "Man, I was looking at you guys. You guys look like two drug dealers. I didn't know who you were." And my heart just dropped that this man's thinking, because we two black men were in a Mercedes. That the only possible way that could be happening was that we were doing something illegal. Yeah. And we want to dispel those sorts of myths. We need to stop thinking that someone has to have committed a crime, done a manipulation, done something wrong to be enjoying the best of life.
Absolutely.
And we want African American males to understand there is a righteous way to lay hold on the peace of a good life.
Absolutely.
And the peace of a good life, furthermore, is not on four wheels, but it's in the soul.
Absolutely.
If a man's soul gets lined up with God and starts the process of lining up with God, all those things. Jesus said it like this: if you seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, all these things will be added to you.
Absolutely.
And so we are excited about that. So I want to give you an opportunity to give us our last word about the event, things you might like the audience to know, and just before I close us out.
Well, again, thanks for the opportunity. Saturday, pleasure. August 8th, on the grounds of the Indiana State House. And it's going to be an awesome time. I had a chance to go to the Million Man March in 95, the 20th anniversary in 2015. We want our own rally here, and there will be follow-up as well. Now, this is not just to come and stand.
Right.
There will be some follow-up.
Exactly. We want to get you involved in some programs. There are initiatives, there are employment opportunities, that we can get you access into health benefits. We can get you access into assistance for your family if you're struggling with the COVID season. There's so many initiatives that are available to us as black men that we don't know about. So we are trying to be a connective tissue to our black culture of black men, to let you know you are not alone, and together we can all do better. Listen, thank you for being here, Brother Smith. You all have been watching, as you know, the Moves That Matter show. My guest has been Minister Larry Smith and his great mind today. Listen, I always tell you, I want to remind you again today, in life, you are always making moves. None of us are just sedentary. You're always moving. Evolution means change, and we're always changing. The skin you started with when you started watching this show has already left your body. You're always in life making moves. Why don't you make your moves that matter? I'm your host, Dr. Clyde Posley. I will see you next week. Remember to hit share and meet us August the 8th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on the west end of the state office building at the corner of Capitol and Washington Street. We will see you next week.